In this video, I'm going to talk about different sorts of deaths and how they affect grief. And of course, death comes in very many different guises. I'm actually just going to read them out to make sure that I don't leave any out, because each one is important to people who have experienced it, and I don't want to miss one. So sometimes people just become frail and elderly. Sometimes they become very sick at the end of their life. Sometimes there's an accidental death, an unexpected death. Sometimes people just die very quickly and we don't expect it. A miscarriage or stillbirth. Sometimes children die at a time when they're young or in their teenage years. Or even as adults, our adult children die. It might be the death of a twin or sibling. Death by murder is a very sad and shocking way to die, and also death by suicide. It's very, very sad. Of course, soldiers, men and women, die in the line of duty, and they might die in the line of duty even if they're members of the police, or social services, or public workers. Sometimes in terrible situations there are traumatic deaths of many members of one family or a whole family. Sometimes deaths come in quick succession where family members die unexpectedly, so family members are left a very large space where their family have been. And natural disasters, of course, which are rare in the UK but do sometimes happen, and more frequently now acts of terrorism. There is absolutely no right or wrong way to respond to any of these types of deaths. But I would say that the shock of the more traumatic deaths, the accidental deaths, and things like murder and suicide do impact families and loved ones very, very deeply and for longer. It is hard to come to terms with the idea that somebody has died before their time by the hands of another and maybe have suffered deeply. These are things that extend grief and make it longer and more complicated. The shock of that type of grief can be really profound and last longer than, say, if somebody died of old age or our parents die before us. But there is no real hierarchy of grief, because each of us will respond in the way we respond, and we don't know how that's going to be till it happens. Sometimes it takes months and, importantly, years to really make sense of it and to understand it and to have it settle within our bones. And sometimes we can never ever accept it to the day we die. And that is the extraordinary thing about love and the extraordinary thing about life. We don't really know how that will play out for people, but all of that is normal. If a death has been particularly traumatic, it can really play out on somebody's mind. And if you or people who have had that type of experience of that type of death need some extra help, then I really would recommend reaching out to your doctor or a counsellor or a psychotherapist to help you. The way that we know if we are stuck in complicated grief is where we feel like it was at the beginning all the time for a profound, long period of time. and sometimes people do need more help. Although actually in the end, really, that is just about talking and having that space to talk about it. So if you feel that you've been adversely affected by a death of a family member that has been terribly sad, terribly difficult, terribly traumatic, do reach out for some help if you need it. There are lots of people out there to help you. You can just go online and say, find a counsellor in my area, and all sorts of resources will pop up.